High Level is a full CRM and marketing platform, and I've used some of the best in the SaaS industry. And we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, X. We've got Twitch going tonight. It's Revening's Wednesday. Welcome to Wednesday, Revenue Party people. We've got our hot topics and our hot guests, so we're going to get right into it. But I have to remind you to delegate. And I'll be reminding you to delegate with Cherry Assistant. So Cherry Assistant is a VA placement company. So if you are looking for someone to help you with the tasks that you have, maybe it's email, maybe it's executive assistant work, maybe it's bookkeeping, maybe there's something else that's keeping you from focusing on what's most important, scan this QR code, or if you're listening later on podcast, just go to cherryassistant.com. And if you talk to them about placing you with a virtual assistant somewhere in the world who has the skills that you need, make sure that you mention that you heard about them through Wednesday for $250 off your first month with a virtual assistant. I work with Cherry Assistant. I've scaled Revening with Cherry Assistant. So I'm still just an individual here at Revening technically, because we have a production and marketing lead who is a virtual assistant from South Africa. We've got a production assistant from South Africa. We've got a video editor from Botswana, another video editor from the Philippines. So we are a global team thanks to Cherry Assistant. And I've had a really great experience, and I want to encourage you all to check it out as well. It might be more than just an executive assistant that you're working with. You never know. But thank you everyone for tuning in. If you're here, let us know. I see there's 17 of you just on YouTube right now. Don't know how many of you are on LinkedIn, but we don't know you're here unless you comment. Leave us some good questions, comments. Tell us what industry you're in so that we can keep this conversation relevant for you who are here attending live, because we can prove to you we are not AI. We are real humans, and we can have a conversation with you. Whoa, look at that. That's even me right there in the chat right there. Just kidding. We've got Layla running my YouTube tonight. Layla with Cherry Assistant is producing the show. But other than that, I want to remind everyone to try out High Level. High Level is a CRM and marketing automation platform. And to get started with it, it's only $97 a month. So when I went from working full-time to starting my own business, I was like, oh, I want to use all the really great tools that I used to use, like HubSpot, Marketo, but unfortunately, I couldn't afford those. And when I was ready to start sending out a email, I found that just having a dedicated IP was going to put me over my budget until I found High Level. And High Level not only had everything I needed for me, I could get 2 other accounts with it. So I could put another client on a CRM and marketing automation platform. They also have social media scheduling. So I was able to schedule all their posts for them. So yeah, we've scaled that. Now, everyone who's going live with Revening, and we are producing 11 shows now. So all 11 shows, we give them access to app.revening.com, which is High Level white labeled. That way, as a marketing agency, we can hand them the leads that we've produced for them. Because guess what, everyone? Here's a big secret. When you go live on a LinkedIn company page, you can gate it and collect everyone's email. And no one seems to know that. But yeah, we're able to give 50 to 100 leads every episode for our clients. And not only that, the high caliber guests we're booking for them to come on the shows with them. So anyway, we love High Level. We've totally incorporated it into our whole ecosystem. We've white labeled it. It's an agency CRM and marketing automation platform, but try it out for free. Maybe you're just kind of a nerd like me. You like to test out tools. This is a new one, High Level. Actually, I shouldn't say they're new. I was speaking at their event a couple of years ago. They've been around a while now, but it's compared to some of the other big platforms out there, it's newer. So check it out. It's been built around AI. You're going to love it. But without further ado, let's bring in our guest tonight. We've got Eran and Henry coming on the show. Welcome to the show.
Hey, and thanks for having us. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Jesse.
Yeah, excited to get into it. But before we get into our awesome topics for tonight, which we're talking LinkedIn, we're talking influencers, and some other things, we want to know more about you. And we can all go search you on LinkedIn. So, everyone, go do that now. Go plug in their name, search them on LinkedIn, see their resume. But we want to know the real life you because people connect with people, right? So, fill in the lines between your resume for us and tell us your full life story from birth to what brought you to now in 2 minutes. What do you think, Eran? Can you kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So hi, I'm Eran. I grew up in South Africa, and before coming to the US about 14 years ago, I was actually in the finance industry. Wasn't sure if I was going to stay there long term, but came to the US for grad school. Had always loved food, and thankfully through grad school managed to pivot into the food space. Joined the meal kit industry where there was a lot of venture capital money going in. I was an early employee of a company called Plated.com. They were then sold to Albertsons, and I moved and I was the COO for a company called Nuts.com. Nuts.com was a really great family business that sells thousands of products, thousands of snacks in the US, and helped them manage through the pandemic. And in 2021, decided that it was time for me to make the move on my own and start a business. I'd always seen a lot of opportunity in wholesale B2B ingredient sales. It may not sound so exciting, but there's buying ingredients and sourcing ingredients from the farm is not as easy as it looks. And so I saw that there were a lot of buyers struggling, and so we started the business 5 years ago, and really started to build a brand around what we're doing. 5 years later, we're now importing products from 15 different countries. We have about 50 employees all around the world, everywhere from South Africa, China, India, South America. We have a lot of people. So, being able to build a really unique culture around trying to bring the world's ingredients to the US, and trying to democratize sourcing a little bit more, and trying to reduce some of the friction that exists in the global supply chain. And obviously today, with a lot of the things that are going on, it's every day is a different challenge, and something very exciting.
Yes. So sounds like you have a global team as well. Very cool. Love that. Well, thank you for sharing. Henry, we want to hear about you as well. Could you tell us your full life story?
Yeah. My full life story is honestly not very long. I'm 19 years old. I started working in influencer marketing when I was 14. I was a video editor initially, worked with clients on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, had my first viral hit with over 1 million views when I was also 14. And then from there, I transitioned into representing creators and would help influencers build out entire content management teams. I did that for a client base of about 10 million collective followers. And then I transitioned on to the brand side of the industry, helping major companies. Now I've worked with some Fortune 100 companies to help them establish strategies with influencers and give them an understanding of how creators communicate, especially younger creators, and how they produce their content. My clients have found it very, very helpful in terms of connecting with younger generations through social media. I've had the opportunities to work with some amazing agencies like Alpha Talent and some companies like eBay, Nestle, San Pellegrino. And most recently, I've started my own consulting firm, which is called Avari. And at Avari, we help companies that are interested in marketing specifically through virtual experiences. So think platforms like Roblox and Fortnite, but they're not quite sure how to get in. And so we use influencers to help them do that and help them build authentic connections with young people.
That is awesome. You might be the youngest guest we've ever had on the show. And of course, leave it to influencer marketing to open up these opportunities for young people. I absolutely love it. This is going to be a great episode. So let's get right into our first topic, which is driving sales. Sorry, Layla. I said I wasn't going to click tonight, but I just did. Driving sales through LinkedIn strategy. Eran, could you kick us off on this topic?
Yeah, sure. And I think it's an interesting conversation. Just Henry comes from a world that is, so much younger, so much innovative, and so innovative. I'm in a world where, I say B2B ingredient sales has definitely there are a lot of older businesses, and there's a need for a lot of innovation and younger blood coming into the industry. So we really, when we started the business, similar to your story, Jesse, where you said you didn't have the budget for some of the marketing tools, we didn't have the budget for marketing either. I mean, going and having huge booths at trade shows are extremely expensive. Doing Google AdWords and trying to get in front of customers when they have the highest intent is also really difficult. And so we started to think about where is the arbitrage, and where can we start to interact with our prospects in a way that would not cost us an arm and a leg, and was accessible. And LinkedIn stood out, and suddenly I really started to explore, and with the team started to explore what we could be doing there. And it has evolved so much, and I think even today we're having conversations around the platform and what needs to change in our strategy because of how much has changed since I started the business in 2021, where a lot of it was a lot easier. There weren't as many automation bots out there messaging people all the time, and I was able to reach out to people and have honest conversations. And so that's really how it started, was founder-led sales. And I think that building a brand around myself has been really helpful in unlocking a lot, opening a lot of doors for the team, and getting a lot of leads through the door. And so I think there's two things that we think about when we think about LinkedIn sales is founder-led sales, and trying to build up profiles of myself and my co-founder, and how do we use that to generate prospects, and use some of the tools that are available. And we do try and use some of the automation tools and some of the tools that are out there to build up a core audience. But at the same time, I think what really works is honest conversation, and trying to figure out how to engage with people in a way that will show that you're not just blasting thousands of people all at once. And then we have our company page, and I think that has been another really powerful sales tool. And I think that one we look at a little bit differently, where we have where we're thinking of selling to both prospective employees as well as prospective vendors and prospective customers. And I think people forget that sometimes, that sometimes a really powerful employee who joins you can transform your business just as much as a great customer can transform your business, the same as a good vendor or some stakeholder that you want to work with. And I think that using LinkedIn as that platform, and thinking about while building your platform on LinkedIn, thinking about how you're speaking to each of those individual people to ensure that you motivate them, so that when they see you and when you reach out and you do the cold outreach, they're already excited, or they do research into you. They're seeing things that resonate with them, that resonate with the problems that they're having, so that they want to join you, right? So that you are able to recruit the best talent, you're able to work with the best vendors in the world, and then at the same time, you're able to solve your customers' problems. And I think that's how we think about LinkedIn is a very different approach to just direct marketing and just trying to blast and close transactional sales. So I think from that perspective, it's been a really successful platform for us. It has changed a lot, and I say that with some reservation, in terms of just there is a lot of noise now, and what's working now is very different to what worked a few years ago. And it's definitely become a little bit harder for us to break through the noise and find our groove, and try and actually get the conversion that we need to get to. So I think there's a lot more testing that we're doing. We have to become a little bit more sophisticated in how we think about this, the channel, and the measuring that we're doing, the tools that we're using, the people that we're using to do these things, and the promotions and content that we're producing to really hook our prospects in, and try and get that initial conversation going. But it still continues to blow my mind that a lot of companies that have these big gates in front of them that you could never get into in the past, suddenly you're able to just message the right stakeholder. And if you have something that they want, if you're solving a problem that they need solved, they'll reach back out. And that, I don't think you can put a value on that. I think my dad has a small business in South Africa, and I think that he can't even fathom being able to do that when he started his business 40 years ago.
Definitely. It's a new day these days.
Yeah, definitely a new day.
Yeah, I mean, AI, social media, it's all democratized. I don't know, starting a business, because I wouldn't think even back then that even I would have been able to start a business. But I love what you're saying. I would love to hear more details on like how exactly are you using LinkedIn to generate sales? Like, is it through the DMs? Like for us here at Reviting, we focus on content creation. So a lot of people haven't started utilizing live streaming on LinkedIn like they have on, say, TikTok for B2C, where they're selling products. Well, on LinkedIn, B2B pipelines are typically longer anyway. They can have a year-long, sales cycle, or longer sometimes. And same thing with our content. So on LinkedIn, it's more about thought leadership like this and building trust over time. But live streaming isn't going anywhere, I would say. But for you, I'm just curious, like, how are you using LinkedIn to generate sales?
Yes, I mean, you touched on a good point. We're not using live, and maybe that's just me being uncomfortable at going live, and so we'll see if that changes over time. And I think that I heard someone say the other day that live is one of the best opportunities because people are so uncomfortable that they're just, generally there are always going to be fewer people doing it. So I think it is a great way to to break through some of the noise. But the way we do it, we do a lot of cold outreach. We use tools that allow us to automate some of the cold outreach, and we're trying to try and be specific around who we're targeting to try and and we have funnels that are running constantly, and we have a large sales team that are work that have a lot of automations going to try and get into people's inboxes. At the same time, we do generate a lot of content and thought leadership. I think that both on my profile as well as the company's profile, we're generating a lot of content around the customer, around the customer's problems, trying to build a brand, trying to build awareness, trying to build authority in the space that we're in, so that there is some trust. I think some trust is building trust in B2B is hard. It's not always easy to know if you can trust this company. It's not like there's 1,000 Amazon reviews around. So then you need to build a lot of trust. So we do a lot of that work to try and give people some reassurance and figure out what anchors they need to see in order to trust us as a brand. And then the other thing we do, which I think works really well, is we do a lot of internal competitions around LinkedIn engagement and a lot of like points and rewards to try and get employees to engage with our content, to become thought leaders themselves, to promote the brand, to promote the company, to help us generate the buzz, and we see that work really, really well. And that I think that those are like little things that you can do with minimal budget, and I think that it generates a lot of goodwill with LinkedIn, and especially the LinkedIn algorithm that then helps to just widen your net that you're going after.
100%. What's your take on LinkedIn, Henry?
I mean, from an influencer marketing perspective, we're seeing a lot more demand for it, and from both smaller companies who are looking for that that Eran is talking about, and also from bigger companies too. Like I recently worked with ByteDance on something where their target were key opinion leaders, KOLs on LinkedIn.
Wow.
What type of content were they trying to get from these influencers? What was their objective of trying to market on LinkedIn?
So they were pushing a new AI-centric product specifically for AI video editing and generation. They were sort of targeting business owners as a way of positioning the tool as a catalyst for putting more content about your business out there on TikTok in an easier fashion. And so they identified LinkedIn as one of those channels where your quality of audience is significantly better and more consistent than platforms like Instagram and TikTok, which I think is, I would imagine, what you guys have been seeing as well, where you're reaching people who are key stakeholders and have the authority to make decisions such as, okay, let's start using this software product across the company. And they found a lot of success with it, especially in global markets as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's definitely true that I think 5 years ago, LinkedIn was looked as a recruitment platform. If you saw an employee on LinkedIn while you were at the office, you would be like, oh, they're looking for a job. And I think that through the pandemic, that completely changed now, where people use that as social media. And what's the best benefit is that a business reaching out to someone on LinkedIn isn't as weird as if I went and DM'd a CPG founder on Instagram saying, hey, do you want to buy some ingredients? I think that's like it feels like I'm going into their personal space, right? And that's invading something that, like, invading some personal space that doesn't exist, with that I shouldn't be in. Whereas on LinkedIn, I think that there's it's become a little bit more accepted or acceptable to do the things that we're doing in the sales stuff. It's all, it's not as frowned upon. I don't know if they love it, but it's not as frowned upon.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think the diversity of content is probably the next step in terms of how do we make LinkedIn a better place for promoting a product or service. The content, I would be curious to hear if you guys agree with this. The content on LinkedIn is all like it reads like LinkedIn. You can tell that this is something that was produced for LinkedIn, and it tends to not be very conversational. There are plenty of people who end up maybe using AI to generate some of their posts. It's consistently, there's a style to it. Have you seen
Yeah,
that?
there's
Yes.
100%. It's especially over the last 12 months. It's just, and I mean, I'm guilty of it too now, trying to figure out what the algorithms want and what they'll show. And um, I think everyone is following the same format. Everyone seems to want to follow the same format. But then the posts that have worked really well for me have been the personal posts, right? Posts that have been, just raw posts that are personal, that aren't about the company, or, just, things that I've been thinking. Those are the things that do work well. I
Yes.
don't think that always comes so naturally to some people on the platform like myself to talk about or realize that that's what people want to hear. Or, sometimes the person that I work with, she always reminds me that, like, don't assume that someone doesn't want to hear what you're saying. Put it out there and let them tell you that, rather than you just, you always just, putting that barrier up before taking the chance.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, 100%. And I think it's important for people to remember a few things about LinkedIn in particular. Well, one, there's only about 1% of people on LinkedIn are actually posting. So right now is a really great time to start to get active. I find in what we do here and helping people go live on LinkedIn, there's a lot of imposter syndrome around LinkedIn, particularly. People are nervous about going live on LinkedIn. They feel like, it's this stuffy professional environment. But, if you don't put yourself out there and make yourself visible, you're not going to have those rewards anymore because, well, people connect with people and not brands anymore, and trust is huge. So live streaming is going to be one of the only places where you can have real authentic conversations from the chat, like, hey, David in the chat, hey, everyone who's here, like,
Yeah.
comment, say hello, we can have a conversation. We're real humans. Yes, diversity of content and including live stream content. But I think it's important for people to remember not everyone's posting. Also, going viral shouldn't be the point. So, like, back when I first started on LinkedIn, that was my goal. I was trying to get as many impressions on my posts as possible. And I got a lot. I mean, there were posts, I probably had 6 figures of impressions like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And I would sit there in the algorithm and I would try to drive all these comments just to get as many impressions. But guess what? How much revenue I had at that point? Zero revenue. So when you're sitting there spending all your time just trying to get impressions, then you're not really spending time growing your business. But when I really just started to write specifically for the people I was trying to sell to or to a specific audience and stop appeasing to everyone, that's when I started to see more revenue. So I think it's important for people to not feel like you're not doing anything when you're not getting a bunch of likes, when you're not getting a bunch of comments, because you are resonating with someone. And I would argue more on LinkedIn than other places. It's quality over quantity when it comes to the type of engagement you get. But just curious what both of you have to say on LinkedIn, on anything regarding that before we transition on.
I think I agree. I like the comment I said, which was the things that have resonated really well in terms of impressions have been things not about the business, but then there have been posts that I think were valuable to the audience that I was trying to sell to, but it's much smaller and less engaging with me. They don't know me personally. Maybe they're connected to me in some way, but not direct. And so then you don't think it's resonating. And so there is some imposter syndrome to stop doing that. But I think what you said is true. It's actually a conversation that we were having today, which is, think about the quality of trying to, talk about what you're doing and not be scared to sell a little bit more. Do it in an honest and thoughtful way, and don't try and just blast content out there for the algorithm. But target the people you want to sell to in an honest way. Tell them how you're trying to solve what, some of their problems. And I think that does lead to probably better conversion than, maybe a personal post about something that will generate 50,000 impressions, but actually go nowhere.
Yeah. We talk about this in the Wednesday Winners WhatsApp group. We've got Nina, who was just here in the chat. Nina, I don't know if you're still there, but she's been talking about this post that had 2 words and it's a meme. It's completely ridiculous. And it's at like 120,000 impressions or something. And then she does like really great data governance posts. And it's like, not as many impressions. So it's like a whole conversation that like, yeah, the good stuff isn't getting, but you got to decide, who are you writing for, everyone or no one?
Yeah.
And we did.
Does it not feel like LinkedIn's trying to become more of a social media platform? Like they are rewarding a lot of that, right? Like that's the thing. Like I think like people like Henry are going to crush it on LinkedIn over time because they understand like how to make engaging content that is what people are scrolling. It's like the dopamine that people get, right? Like, and in the end of the day, like to some extent, the LinkedIn algorithm is going to be built to get engagement, right? And like that stuff is engaging. So that's my hard balance between the two, right? I'm fighting the algorithm, but they are like it does seem like they want that to some, because that's what I see all the time.
Agreed.
I don't know how you think about that.
Well, the balance is really important, right? Neither strategy works without the other. It's like when you first meet somebody, you don't pitch them on your business right away. You have a conversation like, hey, how are you? What's your name? What do you do? And it's the same thing with LinkedIn. When somebody encounters you in their feed, it's okay if you attract a lot of impressions with a more personal post. And then from there, you sprinkle in some conversion optimized posts because LinkedIn is meant to sell things at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick from the chat, we've got a comment that says, thanks for reminding us all to be authentic with the way we show up and to do more storytelling and thoughtful written content rather than just a standard post that typically will do well for sales. Yes, 100%. But let's get into influencer marketing. So I'm curious to hear what you're going to tell us about influencer marketing, Henry.
Yeah, so influencer marketing means many different things nowadays. And what I think is important to define to figure out what influencer marketing means for your company is what your bottom line business outcomes are and how they relate to people that use social media. So many companies are looking for sales through social media. Plenty of companies are looking for awareness through social media. And once you've defined an outcome, it's very easy to see all the different channels that are available to you through influencers. So for example, many companies will start with gifting, which is simply sending free products or free services to people who have the followings to speak about those free things to more people for you. There's also affiliate programs. You can basically enable influencers or just people with small followings to sell things for you and receive a cut. There are awareness sponsorships, which are those more typical, either for podcasts or for larger creators. They'll just receive a lump sum to promote something over time. And many, many companies use influencer marketing in many, many different ways. It's not a one size fits all sort of situation as with many marketing strategies. And I would say most companies use a combination of the various different forms of influencer marketing for a goal of various different outcomes. Awareness is often part of the strategy and sales are another part of the strategy. It's a very dynamic way to promote products or services to audiences. And there are millions and millions of different people who you can reach through influencer marketing and basically infinite ways to reach them, to engage with them, and to continue engaging with them in a sustainable way.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I don't know, what's your take on this, Eran, before I start chatting about influencer marketing?
I think it's just huge untapped potential, right? I think that there is a lot of, I mean, maybe not for B2B as much. And I was going to ask Henry, like what, where the market is today, like what products or services do you see being well, like, primed for influencer marketing, right? And where do you see any like like some open space where like some companies just aren't taking advantage of and they should be taking advantage of it today?
100%. I think B2B is probably the largest growing space in influencer marketing, or the largest growing segment of influencer marketing right now. And that's simply because, like you said, it's uncapped. It's traditionally been seen as something that's more for direct consumer brands. as opposed to business-to-business companies. But I think now with the emergence of platforms like LinkedIn and also the emergence of influencers who are posting about their corporate jobs, for example, that's become acceptable in recent years. And influencers who are posting about their journeys as entrepreneurs or part of startups, those are huge opportunities to reach audiences authentically and organically who have the potential to buy your product, whether it be software, hardware, or even informational products. Those are a huge sell through influencers today.
Interesting. We had a good question in the comments asking if you think smaller creators are becoming more valuable than bigger influencers right now.
Yes, but it depends how you work with them. I think the different formats for working with influencers are designed to cater to different levels of audience. So there are many smaller influencers who will go and get an agent or a representative and try to negotiate lump sum payments when that's not how you should be paying smaller influencers. You should be using affiliate deals or gifting programs to sort of bring them into your cycle. And there's a huge variance in terms of which platforms are better for smaller influencers. Instagram being better than TikTok, for example, because content has a longer lifespan. Same thing for YouTube long form content. That's something you pay more for than short form content. So there are many different ways to work with them, but I think overall, it's definitely an important segment that's growing.
Interesting. The uncapped potential point is so real, like we see in the chat. So I'm just also curious on influencer marketing. Like, what if we are a business and it's like maybe a smaller company, like pre-seed to Series C, maybe like a tech SaaS company or a finance company, B2B, what would you suggest that they look for in like a contract when starting to sign up an influencer? Because this is a new type of marketing a lot of them have never considered before. But if they're like, maybe the way for us to reach our audience is to have someone talk about it on LinkedIn, like what would that look like for them?
Yeah, that's a very good question, first of all. And for smaller companies who are looking to get the best bang for their buck when they start working with influencers, there are two really important things that I urge them to consider. The first thing is repurposing. So how can you use the influencer's content in as many different ways as possible? Meaning, in a practical sense, get whitelisting rights to the content when you sign that contract so that you can upload it on your own social media accounts. Get boosting rights so that you can put paid ad spend behind it if you really think that it's a high quality representation of your brand. And then the second thing that I tell them to focus on would be if the influencer is a customer of yours or not, because that gives you great data. If the influencer is a customer of yours, then their audience, especially in this B2B space, is a representation of potential customers. And so by understanding their audience data, you can understand who you're reaching on social media in terms of gender, age, location, potential income. And that's very valuable data for you to understand. It also gives you an idea of who enables you to reach those audiences. And it has applications beyond just influencer marketing. I would say that's the important thing to note is you can use the data that you get from influencers. You can use the content that you get from influencers to run paid ads or to drive your own social presence, or even as user-generated content for your website, for example.
Do you find like that influencer marketing is more effective as someone who's like a brand ambassador for like a longer term period where like there's a longer engagement where they're consistently promoting a brand versus like these shorter promotions where brands I've seen just pile on TikTok and every influencer suddenly has like some yogurt in front of them and now everyone's talking about that yogurt, which also seems to work too. But like which from your perspective, which ones have you seen work better? Which path?
I think a combination of the two is typically what I advise my clients to do, where when they launch like a new flavor of yogurt, for example, we'll do a big push and we'll diversify the influencers that we work with, and we'll intentionally segment them into different categories of content, different audiences. And we just use that as data, like I was saying before, to inform, okay, who are what we call evergreen creators, right? Who are the people whose content performs well over time, who can consistently get views across the products that you're promoting and create high quality content that you can repurpose. And then we re-up those contracts and invite them into long-term partnerships. A very accessible way to start doing that would be gifting, especially for a product like yogurt, where your cost of goods is your margins are pretty solid. Your cost of goods is not very high. It doesn't cost you a lot to send free yogurt. And, if even half of those people that you send it to end up posting about it, it's still a pretty solid return. And then you can have a very informed data set for who you invite to be a long-term partner. And you sort of recycle that every time you do a bigger launch or a bigger drop, or you accept a new partner. And it becomes pretty sustainable, I would say, if you can get into a habit of doing that. But I would also ask, from your perspective, especially in the B2B space, how do you think is best to trial potential promoters on a platform like LinkedIn? Because that's definitely a blank space right now, where companies are interested in how they discover the right folks to promote them, and whether or not they upkeep those long-term partnerships, I think, is also important, because LinkedIn is very gated. It's, this is your career on the line. So how do you convince people to adopt a brand long-term, especially in the B2B sector? I would just be curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's super tough. Because referral is definitely one of the best ways to get customers, right, and positive referrals. And in my industry specifically, we can't, because most of our customers are under NDA with us, and they utilize us, as they say, trade secrets. And so for them, giving up who they're using as a supplier is usually not something that they're willing to do. I think in other B2B industries, where you can maybe find influence who are owners. There are a lot of amazing entrepreneurs who have great profiles that are speaking about their experience building a business. There, I think there's tremendous opportunity to go in and help work with SaaS companies to come in and onboard some software for them, and help them through that onboarding, make it successful for them, and get them to be ambassadors for specific software, or even credit cards. And I think credit cards is probably one of the biggest, where there's untapped, where I think a lot of founders rely on 2% cashback cards that are really founder friendly, and banking that's really founder friendly. And I think that if you find the right voice of a founder who's a decision maker, I think that can go a long way as they grow the business. I think for people that are within corporates, that may be a little bit more difficult, right? Because then they have the red tape of the company they're working for, and where do they cross the line where there's a conflict? In at Walmart, you can't buy a buyer a cup of coffee, right? That would be seen as a conflict already. So I think that's I think in the B2B space, it's just, you have to toe the line. But I think that there are pockets of it that probably are super untapped, and there are big companies out there willing to give a lot of money to get their brand out to the right people.
Definitely. I would say when I was still an employee, and even still to this day, I get pitches they're going to pay me anywhere, I don't know, I probably see $100 per post to $700 per post. And I used to do it. To me, when I was an employee, I'd be like, sweet, yeah. What SaaS product do you want me to post about? Okay, cool. Let me go post about that and get $300. And I did that. There's probably 2 years where I did a lot of that. And then I started to look like a walking billboard, and my engagement went down. And that's when I was like, okay, I have my show. I need to try to get these brands to sponsor my show, because then I can do some real damage for them, because just posting about it one time does nothing. It's like anything in marketing, you need to do it over. Like you were talking about repurposing, if you're a small business, repurpose your content from your influencer. Absolutely. Because you're not going to, one view of that content is going to do nothing. You got to keep it going. So I can do more damage, say for Cherry Assistant or High Level, every week by showing their ad, or talking about them every week. There's some consistency there. So for me, I feel like I can actually do them more justice when I have a longer term contract in place. And for me, a sponsorship annually for this show goes for $20,000 to $25,000 a year. But that means your logo is, we're talking about you here on the show. You're going to see here real quick, we're going to play an ad from Cherry Assistant, and then I'm posting about it as well. So, there's some consistency and longevity there, and it's been awesome. I've been able to work with Cherry Assistant now and renew multiple years. It's been 3 years we've been working with them. So if any brands out there are looking to work with LinkedIn influencers, not that I'm calling myself that. I have 30,000 followers. I think that's still a micro influencer technically. But on LinkedIn, you know, there's not as many, like, it's not like Instagram. We got a lot of people with millions of followers, but I digress. Anyway, yeah, I would say brands, stop pitching people to post one time for a couple $100, and people stop taking those pitches and doing it. It doesn't help your personal brand. It actually just makes you look kind of cheap, I think. But anyway, I digress. That'd be my take on that, Henry. Thanks for that question. I thought that was really good. But I'm going to transition us now because we have a brief ad from Cherry Assistant, speaking of long-term partnerships. So we will be right back after this message from Cherry Assistant, and then, of course, Reveting as well.
This is Mike, also known as Clean with Mike on Twitter. Mike hired a virtual assistant from Cherry Assistant about 2 years ago. Now he has a $50K per month business, fully managed by a remote operator in South Africa. His VA from South Africa does the following: closing inbound leads on the phone, Yelp and Google and Facebook, manages his CRM on Go High Level, deals with rescheduling, cancellations, any issues, hires and manages the cleaners, and sends them daily reports and updates. Mike has a fully cash flowing business managed by a remote operator for only $8 an hour. You can also hire a US equivalent worker in the Philippines, South Africa, Latin America for a fraction of the cost with Cherry Assistant. Be like Mike and grow your business with offshore staff.
So if you're listening on podcasts, we're showing a menu of services that they offer, including but not limited to lead generation, CRM management, prospecting assistance, sales presentation preparation, data entry and cleanup, customer support, project management, and so much more. At Reveting, we help B2B founders, executives, brands turn their live streaming into a real revenue channel. One live stream turns into a podcast. It turns into a social clip. It turns into email content like a newsletter and actual sales conversations. You get to have a lot of conversations with people when you have a podcast or a live stream like this. And if you want to be known, trusted, and remembered in your industry, without being online 24/7, worrying about your posting, this is what we do. Just head on over to reveting.com and let's build your show.
I want to give a quick testimonial for the Reveting team and Jessie. I was really nervous about doing lives. And so thanks to Jessie and her team, I've now been doing them for, I think, 7 or 8 months now. The other thing is they very much have helped me increase my reach and online presence. So thank you, Reveting and Jessie.
One of the problems that we struggle with is getting our brand out there. What Jessie and her team have been able to do for us is to take advantage of LinkedIn and the idea of going live on LinkedIn and using that platform to its fullest extent through the way they're able to take the live event and break it down into bite-sized posts. Your team shows up very organized. They were able to take what was limited in terms of how our brand shows up, but actually turn that into visualizations for the different shows, the video clips that are being taken, as well as the content within the posts themselves.
Jessie, I love what you and the team do. You make it so easy for me to get in, have a meaningful conversation with some amazing guests, and then watch the post-production. I've been picking up 50 followers a day just because that content is resonating so well. And I've had a number of people reach out to me who want to be guests on the show. So it's working across a lot of different channels for me, and I can't thank you enough.
Yes, we'd love to help you go live too. So just reach out. But let's get into the topics now. The role of branding in B2B startup growth. Eran, can you kick us off here?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, we started our business 5 years ago, and we're in a pretty old school business where a lot of the brands that have been built not by building huge brands, but by owners really just, pounding the pavement year after year after year. And suddenly after 30 years, they've got this incredible brand, a lot of trust in the industry, and they're able to, command a big space in the industry. And so when we came in and we started, we were thinking like, how do we differentiate ourselves? I think, and you start to look at the market and you realize that a lot of the brands out there, or at least how our competitors position themselves, it's as if like you're buying two secondhand cars, and you get to see the outside of the car, but you don't get to see the inside of each of the cars. And so then what people tend to go for is, who's been there longer. And so we started to think about, how do we build the right signals that will give customers or prospective customers the confidence to engage with us, and what can we tell them, and how do we leverage things around what we're doing to build the brand. And so we spend a tremendous amount of time now building that brand, because we think the compounding effect over time, and we've seen it in terms of just the leads that we've been able to get in year one versus today, and the people that we're speaking to, the retailers that we're speaking to, all of that is just the outcome of building a consistent brand strategy. And I think consistency is the most important piece of it, is that building a brand is not just about one post on LinkedIn once a month, or updating your website a little bit. It's about consistently doing these things over and over again, and always evolving and thinking of new ways to engage with prospective customers, so that you look back in 5 years and you've managed to build a whole ecosystem around you. And so I think we've done that, and we always think about like a few different pillars in terms of what message we're trying to send to prospective customers in there, to show that we have let's say a brand or trust. The first is our employees. We have a really strong team. We like to promote the team, where they come from, what they've done in the past, to show that it's not just a name. There is like real people behind this that are that have the capability, have the skill set that you want to work with. We use third-party certifications. I think that's also a really interesting way to validate what you're doing. Sometimes they may not always feel valuable, third-party certifications, but for us, obviously, in the food space where compliance is key, we didn't need to, but we went out and got additional certifications to just tell people that someone's coming in, someone's validating what we're doing, and that gives a little bit more of a stamp of approval, so that when someone is engaging with us for the first time, or they're seeing us online, they see a badge that they recognize, something that promotes or like lifts our brand. And so I think that for B2B businesses, you have two choices, especially smaller businesses. The first is you go the old school way, where you build over time, and that's super valuable. And you see these companies that have been around for years, and they've built just incredible trust in the industry. But I think if you look at what we've done over the last few years, we've just been doing a lot more purposeful activities towards building a brand, and I think it's paid off. I think our growth has been pretty remarkable. I think what we've been able to do as a small bootstrap business has been really amazing, and a lot of that is just the work that the team has done around brand, about building trust with the audience, thoughtful leadership, sharing information, not just trying to be there at that point of purchase. I think the obvious answer is go and do direct ads on Google. That's when the highest intent is there. So that's when you'll get the biggest ROI. And that's definitely true, but it's also short-sighted. I think over the long term, building, I always just say to people, I can plug in Google tomorrow and spend money and likely figure out something. If in 10 years I decide I want to build a brand, I can't turn around and just do that. That doesn't just happen. It's consistency. It takes time. And so I think that's why we spend a lot of time on brand. I think we've been fairly successful being able to do that and drive sales through our brand.
Yeah, definitely. What's your take on this, Henry?
I mean, branding is essential, right? I think a lot of companies can look the same. A lot of used cars can look the same, to go off of the analogy there. It's really, you have to talk about what's inside in the situations where they can't see it. Showcase your people, showcase your certifications, the experience that you guys have working with your clients, and be specific. Give them results, not just numbers, but explain what the numbers mean. I think that's very important. I think your brand is, like I always tell people, my brand is more than just 1 billion views. It's who are each of those billion viewers? Why did they create an impact for the clients that I've worked with? Being able to articulate that, I think, is really important and adds to your brand in a way that differentiates it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, definitely. 100%. Especially with the rise of AI, like building a business is so easy now. You can just have AI create it. So everything's going to be the same. The only differentiator is going to be the humans behind it. So that trust component, communication, vulnerability, reciprocity, like main components of a human relationship. Is marketing is going to have to do those same things for that business, just as they always have. But yeah, I agree. Brand is still so important. You know, like you look back at like Ogilvy. Ogilvy was writing about branding, advertising, and that was, gosh, I don't know, almost 100 years ago now, not quite, but like, so like this stuff is not new. The basics are still the same. We're just applying it in a different time. And so like now I'd argue even more important to really get into those differentiators and build trust and do things like putting yourself out there and even the face of your brand, or like the influencers you get, those faces that you hire to represent your brand. Finding those and humanizing your brand is going to be even more key to B2B growth, because in the past, B2B, we could get away with just showing our logos and not having a face of a brand and being kind of hidden a little bit, but not anymore. You're seeing more.
I think, go for it.
Yeah, no, you go ahead.
I was saying, like, I think that a lot of what you said resonates, where things, because of AI and maybe digital world, that having a physical brand, and so what I hear a lot now is like marketing through education and getting people together in smaller settings, and bringing people together in a world where you're not trying to sell and you're just trying to show people who you are, and create an interesting forum. I think that's what we're going back to, right? Which is just, there's a lot you can do digitally, and I think it's really important, but the differentiation is going to slowly decrease, right? So like, LinkedIn Live is one aspect of where you can show who you are, your true self, and I think that's incredibly valuable, and definitely learning a lesson today. But there's trying to find other vehicles or mechanisms to get that physical presence, or that differentiated presence, because it's much easier for anyone to post a blog now and say a lot of things and have a great website. So I think you need to find other parts of the journey where you can add value.
100%. Well, let's wrap up here with our final topic: market research for influencer brand partnerships. What can you teach us about this, Henry?
Yeah, I think the best way that I prefer to do it is I will create a new social media account, pretend I am the customer who would buy that product, and I'll just scroll for a little bit. And in the lead up to working with a new client, I'll do that for a couple of weeks. And then when they ask me, how are you going to find the influencers who, appeal to our market, I just kind of pull out my Instagram and scroll through it and explain to them, this is the stuff that your customer sees. So these are the different content styles that we should be going for, and this is the way we should show up in their feed. Instagram has made this a lot easier lately, actually, by just allowing you to customize what you see, so you no longer have to create that fresh burner account. But I think probably the best way to do market research about influencers who might work with your brand is to just envision your ideal customer going through social media. LinkedIn makes this very easy because they're probably on there for in a professional context. Rather, you scroll as if you are them. You understand, what are the things that they're seeing, and then you choose the ways in which your brand would like to show up in that presence, and you test and trial as many different methods as possible. There are platforms that can help you with it. I'd say probably one of the best ones is called Outfit Live, who basically facilitate through AI a little bit of this process and help you understand who you will likely see. But definitely on top of that, I think the best way is to just impersonate your customer and see, who exactly are we reaching, and how do we show up in their feed.
Yeah, that's so valuable. So how do you mimic that account? How detailed do you go in to try and figure out, to make sure that the algorithm is showing you what they would see?
I think I'll use an example for business to business clients. Like recently, I've had the pleasure of doing something with Gusto, the HR platform, and they were going for sort of that entrepreneur who's looking to reclaim some of their time. The idea was sort of that, like, Gusto gives, meaning it gives you your time back by, not letting you worry about W-2s and stuff like that. And so what I did was, if I were an entrepreneur that had some of my time under my control and I wasn't doing HR, what would I like to do? And we ended up actually finding a lot of audience resonance with young entrepreneurs that were making travel content and showing up at networking events around the world because they had that free time back. And those were some of the, or have been so far, some of the highest return influencers. I think the big takeaway is when you start to impersonate that individual and scroll through social media as if you are personally them, you discover a lot of unconventional ways to show up in their life that you might not have imagined before because you weren't as absorbed.
Absolutely. I love that. And I was thinking the same thing as this comment here. How many new accounts do you have? Because, I know at least on LinkedIn, they're pretty like tight on that. So like, how do you do that? How do you go about it? Because it's
LinkedIn, well, LinkedIn, it's tough. You can't create a new account every time. So if my connections seem a little bit all over the place, that's just because I've explored many different industries and tried to understand what those people might be seeing in their feed. But I also think with LinkedIn, probably one of the gaps in the market are the creators or the influencers that seem to unify all of us. Like there are a couple of more comedic folks who have come over from LinkedIn recently, or have come over from Instagram to LinkedIn recently. Like top of mind would be this woman who goes by Corporate Natalie. And are you familiar?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, so she sort of posts this ironic content, and anybody who's been in a boardroom and had to speak like that and interact like that will find it funny, and that's often like a good jumping off point for beginning this process on a platform like LinkedIn, where you can't create new accounts, and so you're looking to understand who you're reaching by starting with that content that sort of unites across verticals.
We got to try to get Corporate Natalie on this show. We had Corporate Bro. I don't know. Have you seen any of his content?
Maybe.
We used to do stuff together, the two of them. He's been on the show. But yeah, no, I digress. Corporate Natalie, if you're listening, you got to come on Wednesday. Anyway, yeah, no, great stuff. Any more tricks for market research for influencer brand partnerships?
Going with the theme of discovering people organically, Eran, how do you, when you decide who to maybe connect with or click the follow button because you want them in your feed, what's the thought process behind that in the context of your specific industry? Because that's ultimately the thinking that people should be going through when they're looking for influencers in their niches. What would the thought process be of somebody that actually does interact with this content?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying, we're going and thinking about the whole purchase cycle. So, thinking through like, is it the R&D person at this firm who's maybe starting the product development? So we're, that's one persona that we try to go after, all the way from like, who is the person that is making the purchase decision? So like category managers, procurement specialists, and then, who are their bosses? And then I'm trying to connect with their bosses to see if I can get some influence from that side. And so we're trying to take a multi-pronged approach to, go in, because these organizations, some of them are just so big. It's sometimes difficult. And so we have a bunch of titles and personas that we're trying to go after that we think would engage with the content and would be interested in what we're selling.
Yeah.
Not sophisticated. Maybe we need to do a little bit more.
It doesn't have to be sophisticated. Many people overcomplicate it. And, in reality, then you end up producing content that doesn't really fit with anything.
Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
I have a mug that says you're muted. I should be using that coffee mug. But anyway, yeah, we've got a few more comments. Who are the thought leaders in my space? Think about the whole purchase cycle. I like the idea of why do I want this person in my feed? Yeah, I like that idea too. This was a great conversation, but we got to make sure we wrap up here because it's already the top of the hour. I can't believe that. So we've got 2 more segments. The Guru of the Week. Layla, kick us off with that segment video. The Guru of the Week. Ooh, the Guru of the Week. Ooh. All right. So who are your gurus of the week?
So yeah, I'll go first. My guru of the week is Cody Sanchez. I think I started my business 5 years ago, and we started from scratch. And had I known about buying a business, I think I would have done a little bit differently. I think for entrepreneurship, there's so many different paths to take. A lot of what you see in the news today is just venture-backed, big money, and I think that a lot of what America is built on and what's great is that there is there are so many opportunities to have small businesses that can be pretty life-changing. And so I think she does a really great job of just showing you different channels in which you can explore buying a business and different ways of doing entrepreneurship. And I think she does a good job of wrapping that all up. Go for it, Henry.
Yeah, I love Cody Sanchez. So great pick. I picked Alex Hormozi in the context of LinkedIn being part of our discussion, because I've started seeing him in my LinkedIn feed much more. And like, as a small business owner, of course, I've engaged with him on YouTube and Instagram as well. But when I started seeing him on my LinkedIn, I found his strategy to be definitely refreshing in that it was different from a lot of the content I was seeing. And I thought the advice still resonated in the new formats that he was trying. So definitely a big fan of what he's been doing.
Yeah, I feel there's a lot of overlap between the two followers of Cody Sanchez and Alex Hormozi.
Definitely, yeah.
100%. No, those guys are both amazing. I comment on Cody's posts like every day. She puts really good inspirational stuff out there, and across all the channels, but on LinkedIn too. And I agree, Alex Hormozi has really defined what it is to be good at LinkedIn. The Alex Hormozi and Gary Vee is another good one like that. I think they've really kind of set a standard. But yeah, no, thank you both so much for sharing your guru of the week. If you're watching, tag those gurus in the comments. Let's see, maybe we can get Cody Sanchez and Alex Hormozi on the show one day. Let's do it. I mean, we had, Justin Welsh, Heather Monahan. Hey, why not? So yeah, let's do it. But anyway, this has been a great episode. Next week, we have another really great episode planned. So we've got 2 more guests coming on next week. We've got Taja M. Graham. She's the founder and CEO of OpsIQ, and Javier Lozano. He's a fractional CMO at Boulder Media Co. Another great conversation planned, but this was an excellent conversation. Before we go, we want to make sure that the audience knows a little bit more about both of you. Could you both share a little bit more about what you do, who you serve, how you serve them, and if they could be served by you, how do they reach you? Eran?
Yeah, so Source 86, we serve mainly customers in the natural food space. We work with large CPG brands, either by sourcing some of their core ingredients, and we do a lot of private labels, so finished goods, retail products that you'll see on some of the shelves in your favorite retail stores. You can get hold of us either at source86.com, or you can look me up on LinkedIn and send me a message directly. Would love to help source some of your ingredients and help you save some money.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. And how about you, Henry?
Yeah, I mean, I still work as a private consultant for companies in many different capacities, as well as individuals that are looking to grow their online presence, because that is who I started working with. So avariresearch.com is my consultancy. We work specifically with companies that are digital natives, so trying to grow their audiences online and selling things online as well. And then Outfit Talent, outfittalent.com, are sort of my go-to, and I work with them quite consistently to establish those relationships with large corporate clients who have a lot to spend on influencers.
Nice. Love that. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for coming here and sharing your expertise with us tonight. It's been an honor having you on the show. For everyone watching, thank you again for tuning in. Definitely go follow and connect with Henry and Eran on LinkedIn. And if you do, make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Wednesday show. But Henry, Eran, I'll see you backstage. Everyone else, I'll see you next week. Have a great Wednesday, everyone. We will be closing out now with our outro video. Bye-bye.